It's that time already? 6 months on HRT, short for hormone replacement therapy. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't think I'd ever get this far. There were times the T blocker, known as spironolactone, were giving me some rather curious side effects. There'd be times I would just kind of walk around, or I'd get up too fast and I'd feel very dizzy, very lightheaded. And there was also a few digestive issues. I'll just leave it at that. I want to gross you out with those kind of figures. But all the same, we made it. 6 months. You may notice I'm wearing something a little different today, a bit of a kimono, so to speak. This kimono actually has some sentimental value. So, this was actually given by a relative of mine, and it's just flattering that somebody's giving me something that's somewhat more feminine. I thought it was a dress at first, but then I put it on. I'm like, these sleeves are a little weird, but, all the same, I like it. It's like a very light robe, and it makes me feel pretty. So in addition to the time, as well as just showing how much my face has changed, I'd like to give a bit of a status update as to how everything else has been going. For my last doctor's appointment, which was this week actually, I had my blood drawn again to see what my levels were at. I'm happy to say I'm finally at a point where my E levels are at a pretty near cis range, actually. And my T levels, while they could be a little lower, are actually really good. I would give you the numbers, but I'm not sure if they would make much sense to you. But for all intensive purposes, I am chemically a woman now. And that makes me really happy. Am I starting to cry now? It's tears of joy, so don't think I'm getting too over emotional. I guess that's one of the other things I mentioned as well, since I'm on the subject. It's not so much that I'm more emotional now, but I feel I don't need to hide my emotions anymore. I can just be out there. Maybe it was the idea that I was brought up being a man. You weren't allowed to have anybody see you cry, and showing any sign of weakness was just an invitation to get bullied mercilessly. So, now that I'm a woman, it doesn't matter anymore, so I can be as emotional as I want, and, it's kind of liberating, actually. At the same time, though, I will admit it's kind of sad, because I know there are cis men out there that are probably going through a very similar struggle. And let me just say this. Admitting that you have a problem is not a sign of weakness, but it is a sign of the greatest strength possible. We all like to think that we are perfect, that we are indestructible, but the moment we realize we're not is probably one of the most humbling experiences. But it's an experience that a lot of people have been through. So there is sympathy for that. And so if you ever have any problems letting out emotions, just kind of showing your vulnerable side even, know that it's not a sign of weakness. We have all been there. We have all suffered. We've all had great problems. We've all had to work out. I've always tried to work them out on my own, and, well, quite frankly, I can only get so far with that. You need to talk to somebody, and that's very important. I feel like I'm kind of getting off topic here, so let's see, where was I? I was on my levels, and I was on my emotions as well. I guess really the third major thing would have to be the legal side of it, trying to actually get my name to legally be Julia. So I may have mentioned this in my last video, but I do actually have the paperwork in process. All I just need is a judge to sign off on the court order. And then the real fun begins. I'll have to change my name on my social security card, my driver's license, pretty much any other form of ID I have. Now the main thing that started this is that my passport is about to expire this year. So I figured it was time to get renewed. But as I'm filling out the application, I'm just kind of like, so how should I fill this out now? Should I fill out under my preferred name, my legal name, my preferred gender, my legal gender? Yeah, that's part of the legal paperwork as well. The first post office I went to, the person wasn't very knowledgeable in such fields and urged me to visit their website. So I did a little bit of research, and it just seemed like they were telling me all the same stuff. It's just like, hey, visit this website if you have any questions. I'm already here. I need you to answer them for me. So I later went to another post office where the person there had a bit more experience. They were recently married, and they had to go through a very similar process to change from their maiden name to their married name, I guess. I'm not really sure what that name would be called. So at this point, I'm just kind of waiting around for the court order, wait for my name to legally be Julia, and then I'll change all my identifications to say the same. It's a slow process, but at the same time, so is the transition, so I can wait. So as for the physical things I'm starting to notice, I feel like they're just kind of minor at this point. However, I've heard so many people say that it's so much harder to see the change in yourself. It's a lot easier for somebody else to see it. That's kind of one of the other reasons I make this video, is because while I think my face is looking a little different, I'm too close to the subject. I can't really give a very objective opinion on how my face has changed. In ways, I feel like the skin of my face has become a little softer. I've tried to let my hair grow out a little bit. Unfortunately, I had a bit of a botched haircut, so I feel like it's very short here, but it's very long in the back. At least it's kind of grown out more to a point where it doesn't look like I have a mullet anymore. But all the same, I did need a haircut. I was kind of getting to a point of a sheepdog because the hair was just starting to get in my eyes, and it was starting to hurt. But all in good time. I will say, while this is a rather baggy setup, I do think my chest has gotten a little bigger. I do like to do a lot of running. That's my typical exercise. Help with cardio as well as just keep everything in check. You know, arm circles, legs. You can do a lot of things with running to exercise various parts of the body. I have noticed it seems like there are times where I'm kind of jumping around during my running where I feel a little bit of jostling, shall we say? I think that's about it. Before we go, I've seen a few other transitional videos, and there's a few subjects that they don't really like to go into, mostly because they're worried about losing their advertisers. Well, this is one of the perks about not having enough subscribers to be able to monetize. I can say whatever I want. So I'll start off gradual and then get a little, shall we say, into more sensitive areas. So I'll start with the broadest topic. The main thing is most of these YouTubers are afraid to talk about sex and sexuality, stuff like that. So I'll start with the beginning. One of the things that rather confused me about trying to figure out if I was transgender or not is I like women. And this was just me and my ignorance at the time, but I kind of figured if you were transgender, I had to like men. I had to be gay, and then transitioning was a way to be straight instead. But like I said, I was just starting out. I had very little education in the subject, and all I got was just a few stories here or there. And the most you ever hear on the news is like the really extreme cases. You never hear about the normal people, so to speak. That was one of the things I found a little confusing. But as a few people have brought up time and time again, lesbians exist. There are girls that like girls. And that was one of those major points. I was just like, okay, that's one, but how about all these other things? Probably one of the biggest things that confused me for the longest time is I'm trying to figure out how to put this so I won't make you run out of the room screaming for mommy or something like that. I'll just say there were times I would experiment with other genders' clothing, seeing what it was like to wear female clothing. Well, I guess it would be cross-dressing at that time. And while I felt sexy, I felt very pretty in these kind of clothes. I wanted to be able to wear them all the time. In fact, I wanted to be able to take them off and still kind of have all those curves associated with being a woman. And for a while, I couldn't really tell if that was like some sort of strange kink or if it was some sort of sign of deep-seated psychological trauma. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't necessarily have the best childhood, so that was always kind of in the back of my mind. But however, after doing enough research, I realized that, well, that was a sign that I was trans. I felt a lot more pretty as a woman than as a man. In fact, even now, I kind of look in the mirror and I kind of feel a little bashful. I'm just like, who's that pretty girl in the mirror? And I'm just like, it's me. It's me. I've made it this far. Dang it, I'm tearing up again. So that's how it is in terms of sexuality, which I remember the doctor, when I first started to try to seek hormone replacement therapies, that was one of their questions. What is your sexuality? I've heard this term before, but I had no idea what it meant, so I'm just kind of like, what is sexuality? It's pretty basic. It just means which gender are you sexually attracted to. And since there is a spectrum of genders, there is a spectrum of sexualities. That's it in terms of the sexuality side. Now let's get into more of the sensitive areas. So I think it's been well documented that estrogen can affect your... I'm just going to call them jingly bits, because not only is that funnier to say, but it's less... So this is something that you should keep in mind before starting HRT is if you like to... shall we say enjoy yourself? This is going to affect things a lot. Like the main things I've noticed is it's a little harder to get it up now, and I've heard a lot of other people say it's hard to maintain it. I'm trying to figure out how to make this sound less awkward than it is. But probably one of the other things I've noticed, and I have actually talked to a few other transgender folks about this, and this does seem to be a common trend with at least estrogen. I'm not too sure about testosterone, but if my experience on being testosterone is anything to keep in mind, it'll make you insanely horny. And that's putting it lightly. But on estrogen, I will admit, like, you don't really feel like you have to do it as much, but if you want to, it's still there, and in a ways, I think it's more pleasurable. You start to kind of notice that there's like certain areas now that can get you in the mood. These are areas that didn't really do anything for me before, but now it makes me rather steamy. Let's see, so I've already gone down the deepest part of the rabbit hole possible. I guess this is the best time to talk about SRS or GRS. So, I'm going to actually be nice and tell you what these terms mean. I believe it's SRS, so sexual reassignment surgery, and GRS, which is gender reassignment surgery. And from my knowledge, it seems like these terms are used interchangeably. There are some people that think that there is a difference between the terms sex and gender, and then there's some that use them interchangeably. My personal perspective is if I'm filling out a doctor's application, for sex I put down what I was born as, that'd be male, and for gender I put down what I'm becoming, female. So that way I can just answer a whole lot of questions like, well, the more obvious ones, if you know what I mean. Anyway, there's SRS and GRS, where basically how it works, I've done a bit of research into this topic, is that they're able to make it so they can change the birth genitals you have into the ones you actually want. I guess it'd be assigned as opposed to preferred, something like that. You can feel free to educate me. I'm still kind of learning about this, I'm not gonna lie. So I guess my personal perspective on this is, after enough time, provided that my insurance will actually cover something of this magnitude, I like to go for it. I've honestly never really been a big fan of the jingly bits. I find in the summer, when it gets hot and sweaty, it's quite uncomfortable. And if you kind of take a corner too fast, or if you get hit there by going down too fast, it could be quite painful. Of course, come to think of it, it's probably going to be just as painful with the other types of genitals, but I don't know. I just feel happier and even sexier at the idea that I can replace them. Now, what's rather interesting is that those that want to keep them, apparently there is another type of surgery out there, which can give you both. I'm not sure how it works, but I hear it's rather experimental and, well, like anything of this magnitude, it's expensive. Like, for example, if I didn't have insurance, they say the roughest estimate would be about $25,000. Which, I don't know about you, but while I would very much like to have this, it would also require a good month off of work. And on top of that, I can buy a new car or a substantial payment into my house with that kind of money. I don't know, maybe that's one of the things. If I win the lottery, I'll just be like, alright, snip them off, let's go for this. I think that's about it. If you have any other questions about my personal experience, I guess, feel free to ask. But the main things to keep in mind is that people experience this in very different ways. For example, there are some that know they're transgender at a very much younger age. I kind of wish I was in the category, but whenever I think back, I can't really imagine any other time in my life where I could have been able to both come out and afford the medication. There are also trans men out there, and even on top of that, there are gay trans men and there are straight trans men. There are lesbian and straight trans women. And there's a lot of other variations there to keep in mind. So yeah, like I said, I can answer any question you have. I mean, after all, I was just talking about sex, sexuality, and chopping off my jingly bits. So nothing is off the table. Except for politics. That I'm not discussing politics anymore. The last time I thought I could discuss it civilly, I'm pretty sure at least 10 people want me dead. And that was probably the most toxic thing I've ever seen in my life. I don't want to repeat that, so no politics. Ever. But other than that, ask me anything. Until next time, be yourself. No matter who that is.